Welcome back. On this video, as you'll notice, I have already taken and I have enclosed this section here, and I've put in some harder basswood in here because with my servo is going to be going into the wing. Now mind you, this is a modification other than the bell crank coming across to use one servo. The reason we're doing this today is because these servos are inexpensive and they do more than a fantastic job, and it's not nowhere near as much work as this. What I'd like to really do though is I'd like to thank my son and grandson. My son for getting me a better camera so I could get a wider angle so y'all could see a little bit more of what's going on. As you see, I cut this out to fit my servo. The wire comes out, it's going to come through here. It's going to go all the way out to this other hole and pass out the bottom of the wing. Here I'll put a little Y harness, plug it into my receiver. Now, seeing that turned out so well, I'm going to take a piece of string and literally pass it through these holes while it's easy to get through. And I'm going to leave the string inside, and I will tack glue this string on this side. That'll let me retrieve the string so I can tie it onto my connector and pull it through the wing after I've covered it. Now that sounds rather complicated, but it's once you've done it, it'll never leave your head. I've sanded, I've got the wing halves done. The reason I was thanking my son and grandson is I got a new camera, gives me a much better angle of my table, lets you see more of what I'm doing, because as I start mounting the ailerons, I start gluing my wing halves together, you're going to be needing to see more of what I'm up to. Now, as I was showing in the other video, you have the aileron stock, okay, but it doesn't come shaped like this. Whenever you get your aileron stock, it'll only have a single bevel on it. I use my razor plane and I bevel the other side. I take it, I mark my hinge locations so that they'll match up with the hinge locations on the wings. And I started cutting my slots. Now, the cutting of the slots, again, please be careful. All you're doing is from the center of this, you're going to pass your knife in really slight and be really careful trying to keep it straight. And you're going to come down in just several passes down the center. And then whenever you get this done, you'll be able to take your hinge. Now, this is one style of hinge. You can buy these from like Sontronics or several others. They're already pre-done. The other way I like to do it, it's a lot cheaper, is I buy a sheet. I literally just mark out the size. They're 1/2 inch by 3/4. Take a pair of scissors and you can cut them. When you cut the hinges like this, that's the same hinge. It's a special material that has a coating on it that lets the thin CA glue adhere to it real well. You may want to clip these corners at a slight angle. One other thing I do is I always take a T-pin and I'll punch me a few holes in it. And like I did on my last videos, I always stick a T-pin dead center for final assembly. The reasoning being is I don't want it to go in too far. It'll do me absolutely no good at all to push this in and push it in too far so that I don't get sufficient surface area for the glue to adhere to. Remember, the hinges are your controls, manage your control surfaces, and you don't want them pulling out in flight. You will see that at a flying field, but hopefully it works out pretty good for you. Anyway, once you get to this point, all right, you've got your slots cut in your wing, all right, and really all it is you're going to take and insert your ailerons into your slots just for a test fit. You're not gluing them yet. You won't glue them until after it's covered. But I wanted you to see how this works out. And whenever they're all in here, they will, when I can find the holes. Now, if you'll notice, this aileron is a bit long, and that's on purpose. First fit in where the hinge is tight. Just keep working it back and forth, and it will eventually go down to where it's supposed to be. And what that's going to do is when I glue them in, it'll permit the aileron to move up and down. That's the reason for cutting the double bevel. Now here, all I'm literally going to do is take my Zona saw and follow this line right on off the edge of the aileron so that it looks like a wingtip coming down. This center piece over here where the space is, that's where that other rod came up and it went into the aileron and in. It's an okay method. This is much better. It's much simpler. It's easier for you to figure and to comprehend as far as your first airplanes go. This is going to be called half the wing. I'll do the other half. Then I'm going to show you how we're going to take a piece of this aileron stock that was left over that I cut off, and we're going to be gluing it on to the edge of one of these ribs down about 1/8 of an inch or so. The reasoning for this is when we go to join these two wing halves together with the dihedral, there'll be a space underneath because there's 3 inches of dihedral in it. And that wood will fill in that space and make me a stronger wing joint. And that's why we're doing this. All right, I want to take this part of the video. I've been getting a couple of questions, so I thought I'd answer them right now in this video. When I was originally cutting out the rib, I cracked it whenever I was cutting it. And they says, well, what did you do? Well, you got two choices. You can cut out another one, or put it back together as cleanly as you can. Take some thin CA, give it a drop along the crack. Give it a sec. Bring it up. Your rib's repaired and ready to use. Because you can see the thin CA penetrated real well along the crack, making it absolutely solid. That was the one question I was given. Another one was about the string I keep talking about. Because when you have this covered, you need to take and get that wire from here to here. So what I always do is I'll take and put a drop of glue on a piece of kite string. I shove it up into the top up here, put a piece of masking tape over it. I run it down to in here, and I know you can't see it that well, but in the bottom of it here, I tack glued it to just a small piece of wood so it'd stay inside. When I have this covered, I'll reach in, I'll grab that from either end, and I'll pull it out. And what I do then is I'll tie it to the end of the servo connector, and that'll let me pull it through. So like if I'm repairing the wing and I have to take the servo out, say it's bad, goes bad, I'll tie a string onto that and drag it back. That gives me access to get my servo leads in and out. Another question I was asked is, why do I notch the bottom of this, right, like that? And what I do there is when I put my servo in, I'm trying to make sure that I put no strain on the cord, no way for the wire to rub and chase with vibration. So when I have the servo in there, if you'll notice, the wire doesn't touch anything because the wire is going to come out. It's going to go right through these two holes. It's going to come out, down out the center of the wing. Now, also on the plans, if you saw the side view, they show taking a piece of aileron stock and gluing it to the end of the wing. And that's so whenever we join these two halves together, which I'm going to do here in a minute, All right, we wind up with a pretty nice fitting joint. I can glue that together, fill it in with fluff or wood filler, and that'll make a nice joint there. Then I'm going to come back in glass. One of the other things I'd like to show you is, or what they asked about, was why I pivot these ailerons to a 45 on the top and the bottom. If you can see that, you can see how that aileron is moving up and down. Now, since the last part on the video, I've taken it, I've cut that shape off so that it matches the bottom, or the wingtip configuration, and it makes for a nice looking end to this wingtip. And while I've done that, as you can see, when this aileron deflects, that cutout right there, or the 45s, make it so that it moves freely without pulling away. So those were a couple of questions that I was asked, which I wanted to clarify before I got too far down the bike here. And the next thing I want to do is join these two wing halves together. Now, the plans call for this airplane to have 3 inches of dihedral. So what I've always done is making a mark on a couple sticks and lightly glued them to the end of the wing rib. And literally what I'll do is whenever that sits on the table, there's my 3 inches of dihedral. So I can set it out on my table and I can bring it together in the center here. I can line up the front and the back of the wing, and I can hit it with this thick CA glue. I could start gluing these two halves together. I'll take a little of the kicker, and we'll just kind of hold it there for a minute, glue some more spots. Now, the looks of this seam is not that important because we're going to be coming back with some thin fiberglass mesh, because we want, as I had said earlier, we're going to want to cover this area here. And the fiberglass mesh will be put on with thin CA, and I'll show you how to do that here in a minute. And the back of the wing back here, you're going to use pieces of balsa. Now, you can use aileron stock. That's okay to use. You can actually just use a piece of 3/8 by 1.25 aileron, or just flat wood. And the reason you can do that is because when you start pulling your rubber bands around on this airplane, which you'll do, you'll start taking your rubber bands and coming back and around. The back edge, if it's this thin like this, it'll just tear up. If you want to use aileron stock, do that, but take a piece of thin plywood or a piece of some kind of wood and put it back, as I'll show you here in a little bit, getting ahead of myself. The wing has now been glued together, as you can see. Again, I used the saran wrap to hold it. I'll flip this over, put some more glue on this side and kick it. Then I'll come back and I'll finish these off. Just filling the gap in with glue. And my wing is actually now put together. So there's what the wing's going to look like. Like I said, I have to add my 2 pieces back here for the rubber band to come over and hold. But that is how hard it is to build a wing for the Telmaster Junior Telmaster actually. And whenever I come back off of this video, we're going to have these pieces installed and we'll glass this center section. Well, we're back. What I have now is I have went ahead and I have placed some hardwood on the back of the wing and glued it on. So my ailerons work, and I wanted to get around to glassing the wing. Now, this might look like it's difficult. I found that it's one of the easiest ways to do this. What I literally do is I have some 2-ounce fiberglass cloth that I like to use. And the main thing is to get the glass flat. You take some thin CA And you literally just come across the glass like this. And as you can see, the Cynthia is going to wick out really well as it's adhering down. Now, I keep saran wrap around to keep pushing it down. The CA doesn't seem to stick to it. You stick your finger down there, you're stuck. But what we're going to be doing here is this is reinforcement for the center of the wing. And you just keep wetting it down. You can see how hard this is. And this will reinforce the center of this wing. You could stand on it and you ain't gonna break it. But we put our airplanes through some pretty tight forces in the air. And we need this center section to be pretty solid. On a lot of the ARFs in that you purchase, you'll find that they use a strut inside the wing, which is another way of doing it. But when you're doing a scratch build like this, where you're building two smaller wing panels, and all I'm doing is just wicking this down real fast. You can see how hard this is. Roll it around the leading edge and the trailing edge as I go. Okay, that's as far as I'm going to go there. Go back to the center. Do it to the back of the wing. Again, just pulling it down, making sure it's laying flat. Take saran wrap so you don't stick your fingers down. Not only do you stick your fingers down, but as this set kicks off, it'll burn you. So you really want to try to watch it. Now, there's a fume that comes up off of this, and you're going to want to try to maybe have a little fan blowing so it blows the fumes away from your face. I don't have it going right now, and I can already feel it, and I forgot to mention that. But once you get this all stuck down nice, make sure you mash it down. If you have an imperfection spot like this, once it sets up for another 15 minutes or so, just take a piece of sandpaper, sand it, it's gone. We're going to roll the wing over, and we'll do the bottom. Make sure to pull it tight. Give that a minute to kick off. And then we're going to do the same thing down the bottom. And I'm going to set the wing aside because the wing is ready to cover. Now, if you're wondering where I got the hardwood at, I don't know, maybe I could kind of sneak you a peek. This works really well. And if you ask them real nice, at certain box stores, they'll give you a couple of them. They're nice to have on hand for places where you need hardwood. I have the balsa on the bottom. I have the hard on top. Again, when we bring the rubber bands over to rubber band the wing onto the aircraft, all right, they're going to follow down both sides. This right here will look a little rough, but once your rubber bands are, you'll never notice. The wing now on top with all of the string, places for the servos, the modification that I have done for putting a single servo on each side of the wing really does a fine job of making this aircraft wing look really pretty. Now, the next video section I'm going to do after this is going to be the fuselage. So I've got all of the parts for my fuselage cut. Once you got all your pieces cut, your bulkheads and your fuel tank bottoms, all of your pieces are cut along with your sides, which I've already got done. All right, I got a left and a right-hand side. We'll have to glue these on because we're making a left and a right. We'll also get into the tail surfaces. I've already done those. I've got them hinged and ready to glue on. So we're good to go there. We got a rudder also. So we'll get into this fuselage build on the next video. So I want to thank you, and if I've forgotten or you have any questions about what I've done so far, I'd be more than happy to answer. As far as the cloth goes, if you have a hobby store, get it there. If you have to order it online, all you need is small pieces. You can actually buy this, I believe it's from Dubro, maybe it's Sontronics. It's already just yay wide, and you get like five yards of it or something. It's under $6. Do it whatever is the most economical for you. I've not found anything better than fiberglass to do this particular function. And again, have you some saran wrap because you don't want to be sticking yourself to it. And maybe a little fan, like an office fan, a little job to blow so it blows the fumes away from you, because when this stuff starts to kick off, it can get rather potent and burn your eyes. So we are now to this point in the wing. I would have no problem going ahead and covering and gluing this wing, or finishing my covering on the wing. That'll probably be the video after the fuselage. We'll get into covering. Then I'm making a modification to the fuselage, because I'm also going to be making this electric instead of being nitro. There seems to be a lot of inexpensive good motors out there that you can pick up rather inexpensively. All you have to worry about is just having you a battery to charge. But that's the way we're going to do this one. And then if I find a nice day here, we're going to go out and we're going to go ahead and do the test flights on it. And I just wanted to pass on this information about how to scratch build, so that a lot of individuals out there will have a reference back. Now, there's other ways of doing different parts of this. If you want to go with the old bell crank system, that's fine too. The plans show it, but in the old days, you had one servo that you relied on. If something happens to that servo, your ailerons are toast. At least with the two, if one craps out on you, you got the other one that could counter. Makes it just a little bit safer. Better safe than sorry. You'll have some work in it. Besides that, this is going to be one nice looking aircraft that you can be proud of, and you can always say, I didn't buy that, I built it. And that is what it's really all about.